business at hand. I got a couple big things going down right now. First off, the fate of the TNA title hangs in the balance, and that's going to go down at Lockdown. And in the back there's so much talent. There's so many hungry wolves. I finally found 8 guys that rose right to the top. And tonight, we're going to have 4 matches to find out who I pick to be the #1 contender at Lockdown. You're going to see the whole effing show, RVD, go against the super kick of the Cowboy James Storm. And then you're going to see some guy that thinks he's a superhero named Christopher Daniels go against a guy that I think I'm going to put my money on, and I might even put your money on, and his name is Magnus. And then it's going to get real nasty out here because the human cyborg, Kurt Angle, he's going to take on Samoa Joe. And just to make sure my feet fly about 100 feet off the ground, the final 2 champions are going to be pitted against each other. These former champions are going to be tearing each other's eyes out because we've got the it factor, Bobby Roode. He's going to be taking on a double Austin Aries tonight. And at the end of the night, I'm going to be listening to the crowd out here. I'm going to be watching all the matches. And at the end of the night, I'm coming back out here, Jack, and I'm picking the #1 contender to take on Jeff Hardy at Lockdown. The other business at hand that's going to get real nasty is the business of aces and eights. Aces and eights called out the whole TNA roster, and they want to have a war to end all wars at Lockdown. Made a phone call to my brother from another mother, and I made him the captain of Team TNA, and I want you to hear from him right now, the Icon Sting.
Those scumbags, aces and eights, you made your challenge, and I'm here to tell you, challenge accepted. So I'm going to do the same thing Hulk's going to do, look up and down that roster and find myself 3 killers to be on my team at Lockdown. And I can promise you this, we are going to tear some heads off at Lockdown and put an end to aces and eights. And all I got to say is, aces and eights, what you gonna do when the Stinger run wild on you?
And now, more Pro Wrestling Weekly with your host, Fearon.
Sit down, shut up, and listen up.
Welcome back to Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com. Fearon here with you, talking WWE, TNA, and Olympic wrestling as well, as the International Olympic Committee deciding this week to remove wrestling from the 2020 Olympic Games, and professional wrestlers who started in the amateur ranks, they are none too thrilled, to say the least. And we'll get back to that in a little bit, but going off of the clip that we just heard, we've got at least a couple of matches partially set for the TNA Lockdown pay-per-view coming up 3 weeks from tomorrow, Sunday, March 10th. You've got Jeff Hardy. He's going to be defending the TNA Championship. It's going to be in a steel cage match, as the Lockdown pay-per-view theme is that all the matches on the card are in a steel cage. And that opponent is yet to be determined. It was going to be named by Hogan later in the night, but involvement from Aces and Eights prevented him from making that announcement, so I guess we'll have to hopefully find out this coming Thursday on Impact to see who Hardy's opponent will be. And then, of course, the Lethal Lockdown match, kind of a hybrid of the old War Games from the WCW days. You've got 4 members of Aces and Eights against 4 members of Team TNA. Sting is going to be leading Team TNA, and it's presumed, but not officially announced, that Devon will be the captain of the Aces and Eights team. So a couple matches set, at least partially. We'll find out those other members, as well as some other matches for the Lockdown card coming up over the next couple of weeks leading up to Lockdown, 3 weeks from tomorrow. Anyway, let's go ahead and get to the phones. We've got Lois, who's been hanging on. She I guess, heard what I was talking about with the wrestler Jack Swagger and wanted to chime in on that. Lois, welcome to the program.
Yes, thank you for having me. Shall I give my comment?
Sure. I'm not sure how much you had known about it going in based on what my producer Matt was telling me here. This is a wrestler who's doing kind of it's an interesting storyline as they're trying to promote themselves as pro-American, which usually gets the crowd to cheer for them, but in kind of a backwards story writing thing. In this case, their pro-Americanism is trying to get people to boo them, and it looks like they're working on a storyline where there's the current world heavyweight champion Alberto Del Rio is actually of Mexican descent, and he is a fan favorite. So they're actually, it looks like they're going in the direction of having the foreigner be the fan favorite and the American actually being the bad guy who gets booed.
Well, I didn't take it that way. I didn't realize that they were talking about wrestling, but I took it that from what the speech that I heard, that they're praising America, and because they said, how are all of these people that he couldn't understand the speech, etc., in our country? It doesn't look like the country that our forefathers founded. And that they were praising, and they were saying that we need to take back America, or we will lose our country. Our country is going down because of this. And when someone said something about the hair and the color.
Oh yeah, that was that was in reference to a wrestler who Jack Swagger had beat actually last night on the SmackDown program on the Sci-Fi Network. Who is his character is kind of a almost a take on like a Long Island, Jersey Shore type person who's he's pretty good in matches, but he tends to promote his hair care, getting a tan, kind of like the if you remember the show Jersey Shore, that was kind of a thing for a couple of years, that in that regard, and I think he was kind of making light of that to again get people to boo him. But I thought it was kind of weird because usually on a program that's catering to kids, they usually don't go in this kind of political direction for a wrestling program, and that's I guess why I played the clip, because I thought it was interesting and different and something that I haven't really seen before, following wrestling for the last 20 years.
Oh, well, like I said, I didn't hear the beginning of the program, and I'm not familiar with the names that were they mentioned Jack Swagger. I have no idea who he is.
Yeah, he's a professional wrestler. He he wrestled in the amateur ranks, University of Oklahoma. I mean, it's all character driven. I know. I sorry if I fooled you a little bit. I know that we have a political talk show Monday to Friday from noon to 1, and I that might have thrown things off a little bit. And I hope I'm not stepping into Pat Wanling's territory, but. But yeah, I thought it was because I thought it was different, interesting, and kind of against the grain of what's usually done in professional wrestling. I thought it would be different, but I guess flipping the dial, you kind of chimed on in, Lois, and you weren't sure exactly what you were hearing.
Well, what I was hearing was that whoever it was and the crowd, they were cheering America and wanting America to bring back America like we had under our U.S. Constitution that our forefathers have given to us, and that we need to keep that in mind. And they were just for America. There wasn't any booing of America. There wasn't anybody trying to put down anyone who that I knew. It was just that, and if there was any indication of that, it was those who are anti-American. And I was, we just have to keep in mind when we have somebody promoting gun control, most people that own guns, I don't own one, but anybody that does, most people that do, are very responsible people. And just a few may be going around killing people, which is a tragedy. But we cannot lose our Second Amendment, which affords people the right to keep and bear arms, because once we lose that, the communists take over your country. And that is the worst of worst things that could possibly happen to any country, and especially America. We cannot let that happen.
Who would have thought that all this would have stemmed from a pro wrestling storyline, and some interesting commentary? Yeah, they were just saying those comments to get the crowd to boo them, not so much like a pro anti-American statement, but just the fact that they are being pro-American by stating what's wrong with America. It's something different, but believe me, I didn't want to get into all kinds of political aspects on the show. Man, that's you never know what's going to happen here. It's certainly an interesting direction that the program's taking here. Never know what's going to happen here on Pro Wrestling Weekly. Kicking things off with a bang, to say the least. Let's get into some news and notes here. We'll get over to the Facebook feedback in just a moment. Thanks so much for the call, Lois. Some other news and tidbits here. Scott Hall. He's obviously had some demons that he's been going through, some personal demons, some drug and alcohol issues over the course of his career, and it looks like at least there's a possibility that he might be joining along with Diamond Dallas Page in his accountability crib. DDP releasing some audio of a phone conversation that he had with Scott Hall, who repeatedly said, "I'm dying." The phone call included Jake the Snake Roberts, who joined with Page a few months ago, trying to convince. He joined with Page to get his own career back on track, and was trying to convince Hall to join them at what's been known as the accountability crib. Of course, DDP using his brand of yoga line to kind of get people back in shape. Now, Hall repeated himself throughout the phone call, slurred his words, said that he was, quote, drinking vodka for breakfast twice, and rambled about WCW stories. At the beginning of the conversation, Hall said he just wants to die, but Roberts told him that he can get out of that mindset. And Roberts went on to say that he's been clean for over 60 days, which shocked Hall. And Hall, who noted he is out of money, vowed to make arrangements to travel from Florida to Atlanta, Georgia, to join Jake the Snake Roberts and Diamond Dallas Page. Now, Scott Hall's longtime friend and tag team partner, Kevin Nash, of course, from The Outsiders, he reacted via Twitter. Wasn't quite as supporting of the kind of news story. He said, "I love everyone telling me about what Scott needs. Been dealing with this for 20 years. Scott will get healthy when Scott wants to, period." He goes on to say, "Scott told everyone 2 months ago he was going to DDP's. He was going to be there that weekend. Show me the tape when he walks in the door." So kind of laying a little bit of a challenge, a gauntlet. It's like, it's one thing to say, yeah, I'm going to do it, but it's another thing to actually go ahead and do it. Then he goes on to, I guess, kind of rip Diamond Dallas's whole recovery program. He says, "Does anybody realize Scott will die if not taken to a hospital and clinically detoxed? You bleeping idiots. Yoga's great, but 20 years of abuse? Did Scott know he was on that call live? That's bleeped up. I would never have my friend saying over and over he lives on vodka. Don't work for me. This is my friend's life, not a PSA. You want the truth? It's not for you to know." So Kevin Nash reacting a little harshly, but on the same token, as far as Scott Hall's health and recovery and whatnot, this isn't exactly new territory for him. It's something that he has had to deal with his longtime friend Scott Hall for quite a while. Let's go ahead and take care of our second bit of business, because coming up we've got high school basketball at 12:50 or thereabouts, and we'll come back. We'll get more of your phone calls. We'll get to the Facebook feedback. I've still got my predictions starting to go wrong. I'll get those on the other side, plus more news and notes on a very interesting show to kick off the 14th year of Pro Wrestling Talk here on WBCB. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly here on 1490 WBCB and online at WBCB1490.com.